My daughter held my hand and whispered, "Just 3 more days, Mom. Then it's all mine. Finally. God, you're taking forever to die." I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady, my body completely still. Because in that moment, lying in what I thought was my deathbed, I realized something that shattered my entire world. My daughter wasn't grieving. She was counting down to my funeral like it was Christmas morning. "My name is Thessaly Brandt. I'm 54 years old. I built a $68 million pharmaceutical empire from absolutely nothing. When my husband Garrick died in a boating accident 8 years ago, I was destroyed. So I poured everything into my daughter Eirlys, $50,000 a month in allowances, designer clothes, luxury vacations, private jets, unlimited credit cards, whatever she wanted. I thought I was showing her love. I thought I was building a legacy. I thought when the doctors told me I had terminal liver failure and 6 months to live, she would be the one holding my hand through the darkness. I was right about the hand-holding part. I just didn't know she was holding my hand to check if I was dead yet. Before I tell you how my daughter's funeral speech became her confession to double murder, hit that subscribe button right now because this story will show you something most people never understand. What happens when a mother's love meets a daughter's greed? Drop a comment telling me what time it is where you're watching from and what city or country you're in. I want to know who's hearing this story with me. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began. See. Here's what nobody tells you about family betrayal. It doesn't announce itself with screaming or arguments. It whispers. It smiles. It brings you tea every single night and watches you drink it. It sits by your bedside playing the perfect daughter while your organs slowly shut down. It plans your funeral while you're still breathing. But here's the thing about being a self-made millionaire. You don't build an empire by being stupid. And you definitely don't let someone murder you without making them pay for it. So when my daughter left that room, confident I was too sedated to hear her confession, I did something she never expected. I opened my eyes, I picked up my phone, and I decided to do the unthinkable. I was going to die, but not the way she planned. The moment Eirlys closed the door behind her, I stopped pretending. My eyes snapped open. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the blanket. My heart was pounding in my chest, and suddenly I understood why. It wasn't liver failure making my heart beat wrong, it was poison. For 2 weeks, something had felt off. I'd noticed strange transfers in my bank accounts. Money was moving in ways that didn't make sense. So I did something I never told anyone about. I hired a private investigator named Makoa Sterling. I told him to look into my finances quietly. I thought maybe my accountant made mistakes. I thought maybe I was just being paranoid because I was sick. Now I knew the truth. My instincts were screaming at me because my own daughter was killing me. But here's the thing. Even after hearing those words come out of her mouth, part of me didn't want to believe it. Maybe I misheard. Maybe the medications were making me confused. Maybe I was so sick that my brain was playing tricks on me. After all, Eirlys had been so sweet these past months. She brought me tea every single evening at 8 o'clock. She sat with me for hours, holding my hand, telling me stories about her day. She seemed so concerned, so loving, so perfect. Maybe I got it wrong. I grabbed my phone and called Makoa. My voice was barely a whisper. "I need you here right now. Bring everything you need to test my blood. I think someone's poisoning me." He arrived in less than an hour. No questions asked. He walked in carrying a small black case that looked like something from a spy movie. He didn't waste time with small talk. He pulled out needles, vials, and a handheld machine I'd never seen before. "This will take about 15 minutes, he said, drawing my blood carefully. "Just stay calm." Those 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. I watched him work in complete silence. My mind kept replaying Eirlys's words over and over. 3 more days. Finally. You're taking forever to die. The machine beeped. Makoa stared at the screen. His face went pale. "Digitalis," he said quietly. "You have digitalis poisoning in your system. High levels. That's a heart medication, but in these amounts, it's deadly. It causes every single symptom you've been having. The irregular heartbeat, the nausea, the blurred vision, the exhaustion, everything." My chest felt tight. But the doctor said it was liver failure. Dr. Veli ran all the tests. She showed me the results. Makoa looked me straight in the eyes. "Your liver is fine, Thessaly. Your kidneys are fine, your organs are functioning normally. Dr. Veli's diagnosis was completely fake. Someone paid her to lie to you. You're not dying from disease. You're being murdered. I couldn't breathe. Everything I'd believed for 6 months was a lie. Every test, every doctor's appointment, every moment I spent preparing to die. All of it was fake. My daughter had been poisoning me slowly, night after night, tea after tea, while I thanked her for being such a caring daughter. Makoa reached into his folder and pulled out more papers. His expression was grim. "But that's not all I found," he said. "Remember I was looking into your finances? I found something else, something about your financial advisor, Ansel Kane." My stomach dropped. "What about Ansel? He's been stealing from you for 10 years. $8 million. Gone. Fake investment accounts, falsified reports. He's been taking your money piece by piece and covering it up perfectly." Makoa paused. "And Thessaly, there's more. Ansel and Eirlys have been in a relationship for years, since before your husband died." The room started spinning. My daughter was poisoning me, my trusted advisor was robbing me, and they were doing it together. What else had they done together? Makoa spread papers all over my bed. Bank statements, investment reports, account transfers. I could barely focus on the numbers because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. $8 million. Gone. Stolen by the man my husband trusted most. The man Garrick himself had recommended to me 12 years ago when we first started making real money. Ansel had handled everything. Every investment, every quarterly report, every financial decision I made went through him first. He'd sit in my office with his perfect smile and his fancy suits, showing me charts and graphs that all looked legitimate. And the whole time, he was stealing from me. But you know what? In that moment, I almost felt relief, because money is just money. I could survive losing $8 million. I'd built my fortune once. I could rebuild it. At least now I knew who my enemies were. Eirlys, Ansel, Dr. Veli. I could call the police right now. I could expose all of them. I could end this. "Thessaly," Makoa said quietly. His voice had changed. He wasn't looking at the financial papers anymore. He was looking at something else on his laptop screen. "There's more, and you need to sit down for this." "I'm already sitting down," I said. "Then hold on to something." He turned his laptop toward me. The screen showed messages, encrypted communications he'd somehow managed to access, messages between Ansel and Eirlys. I started reading the dates. 9 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. "They were having an affair," Makoa said. "Before your husband died, the messages go back 9 years. And Thessaly, some of these messages talk about a plan for something they called the boating accident." My blood turned to ice. "What are you saying?" Makoa pulled up specific messages. I read them with my own eyes. Messages where Eirlys talked about the boat, about the fuel line, about making sure her father went out alone that Sunday morning, about waiting just 6 months before she could claim her inheritance without looking suspicious. "Your husband's death wasn't an accident," Makoa said. "Eirlys killed her own father. She planned it with Ansel. They murdered Garrick together." I couldn't breathe. The room tilted sideways. Everything I thought I knew about the last 8 years shattered into pieces. Garrick didn't die in a tragic accident. He was murdered. By our daughter, by our baby girl. For 8 years, I mourned with Eirlys. I held her while she cried at the funeral. I comforted her on Father's Day when she said she missed him. I watched her place flowers on his grave every year on the anniversary of his death. We grieved together. We talked about him together. We kept his memory alive together. And the entire time, she was his killer. She killed her own father when she was 21 years old. She killed him for money. And when that money ran out from her shopping and gambling and luxury lifestyle, she decided to kill me too. My daughter murdered both of her parents. I started crying. Not the quiet, gentle tears I'd cried when I thought I was dying. These were loud, horrible sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest. I cried for Garrick. I cried for the life he should have had. I cried for the daughter I thought I knew, the daughter who never actually existed. "How?" I finally whispered. "How did she do it?" Makoa pulled up more documents. Police reports, marine investigation files, photos of Garrick's boat after the explosion. "She tampered with the fuel line," he said. made it look like normal wear and tear. When your husband started the engine that morning, the fuel ignited. The explosion killed him instantly. The investigation ruled it accidental because boat accidents happen all the time. No one suspected murder. No one suspected his own daughter. I stared at the photos of the boat. The same boat where Garrick and I had our first kiss. The same boat where we'd taken baby Eirlys out on the water. The same boat that became his coffin. "She's been planning to kill me since the day her father died," I said. "Yes," Makoa answered. "And in 3 days, if we don't stop her, she's going to succeed." Makoa had been investigating for 2 weeks. He had a whole team working on this. At first, each piece of evidence seemed small. A receipt here, a phone call there, a signature that looked slightly off. But when you put all the pieces together, they told a horrifying story. This wasn't some sudden plan. This was years of careful, cold-blooded murder. Part of me still wanted to believe there was a mistake. Maybe the messages were taken out of context. Maybe Eirlys was joking in some sick way. Maybe the evidence had an innocent explanation that I just couldn't see yet. Because how do you accept that your daughter is a monster? How do you accept that every smile, every hug, every "I love you" was a complete lie? But Makoa kept pulling out more documents, and each one was worse than the last. "Dr. Vela was paid $200,000, he said, showing me bank transfers. "She falsified every single one of your medical records. The liver failure diagnosis? Completely fake. She created test results that never happened. She prescribed treatments you didn't need, all to make you believe you were dying." He pulled out more papers. Legal documents with my signature on them. Except I'd never signed them. Ansel forged power of attorney documents 6 months ago. The same time, Eirlys started poisoning you. These documents give him complete control of all your money and assets the moment you die, or the moment you become too sick to make decisions. My hands were shaking again. "What else?" "Your life insurance. You had a $2 million policy, normal for someone with your wealth. But 6 months ago, someone increased it to $20 million. The signature is yours. Except it's not. It's forged. Eirlys did it. $20 million. That's what my life was worth to her." "There's more," Makoa said. "Eirlys has a gambling problem. Online casinos, sports betting, high-stakes poker games. She owes $3.2 million to loan sharks, international ones. The kind of people who don't just threaten. They follow through. She needed money fast. That's why she couldn't wait for you to die naturally." I felt sick. My daughter was drowning in debt, so she decided to drown me instead. "The cremation," Makoa continued. "She already signed the orders. Using that forged power of attorney. The moment you're declared dead, your body goes straight to cremation. No autopsy, no investigation. All the poison evidence burns with you. Every detail was planned. Every step was calculated. Nothing was left to chance." Then Makoa showed me something that made my blood run cold. Security camera footage from 8 years ago, a marine supply store. And there was Eirlys, 21 years old, buying fuel line parts for a boat. "The store owner remembered her," Makoa said. "She told him it was a surprise for her father. That she wanted to help fix his boat. The forensic reports confirmed it. The fuel line on Garrick's boat had been deliberately cut and reconnected poorly. It was designed to fail, designed to explode. The investigation back then called it an accident because no one suspected a daughter would kill her own father. And the poison?" Makoa said. "The digitalis came from a pharmacist named Dr. Vela's boyfriend. He supplied it illegally. He's part of this too." I stared at all the evidence spread across my bed. This wasn't a daughter who got greedy and made a stupid mistake. This was a calculated killer who murdered her father 8 years ago, spent all his money, then started planning to murder her mother. This was someone who involved multiple people in a conspiracy to commit murder and destroy evidence. This was evil. "So what do we do?" I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. "How do we stop her before the 3 days are up?" Makoa looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "We don't stop her," he said. "We let her think she won, and then we make sure she pays for both murders." Within an hour, my estate attorney, Aurel Paz, was sitting at my bedside. Makoa had called her immediately. She listened to everything in complete silence. Her face went from confused to shocked to angry as Makoa showed her document after document. The poisoning, the embezzlement, the murdered father, the fake medical records, all of it. When he finished, Aurel looked at me with tears in her eyes. "We call the police right now. Tonight, we arrest all of them. Eirlys, Ansel, Dr. Vele, the pharmacist. Everyone." It sounded perfect. It sounded like justice. Finally, someone would pay for what they did to Garrick, for what they were doing to me. But Makoa shook his head slowly. "If we arrest them tonight, they'll lawyer up within an hour. Rich people always do. They'll claim the evidence is circumstantial. Eirlys will cry in court and play the devoted daughter. She'll say the messages were jokes taken out of context. She'll say her mother was paranoid from the medications. Ansel will claim the embezzlement was investment losses, not theft. Dr. Vele will say she made honest medical mistakes. But we have proof," I said. "We have evidence," Makoa corrected, "but without a confession, without catching her in the act, a good defense attorney could create reasonable doubt. And Thessaly, your daughter has your money. She can afford the best lawyers in the country. A jury might not convict." My heart sank. After everything, she might still walk free. I thought about traditional prosecution, about trusting the justice system to work, about doing everything the right way and hoping that would be enough. Maybe with all this evidence, a judge would see the truth. Maybe the authorities would handle it properly. Maybe I should just trust the process and let them do their jobs. "No," Makoa said firmly, like he could read my thoughts. "That's not good enough. We need more than evidence. We need a confession. We need her to act on the murder plot. We need her to show the world exactly who she is. And I know how to get it." He leaned forward. His eyes were intense. "You're going to die, Thessaly." I stared at him. "Or at least everyone will think you did. We fake your death. Make it look like the poison finally worked. Let Eirlys believe she succeeded. Let her think she's safe. And then we watch. We watch her celebrate. We watch her try to claim the inheritance. We watch her make mistakes because she thinks she got away with murder." My breath caught in my throat. "And when she's completely confident, when she thinks there's no way she can get caught, we expose everything, publicly, at your own funeral, in front of hundreds of witnesses. We make sure the whole world sees who she really is. We make sure she has no escape." The audacity of it was stunning. Fake my own death. Let my daughter think she killed me. Attend my own funeral. Rise from the dead to destroy her. But the moment Makoa said it, I understood. It was perfect. Because Eirlys needed to be caught in the act. She needed to be surrounded by witnesses. She needed to be exposed in a way that left no room for lies or manipulation or expensive lawyers to twist the truth. "I want 300 people at that funeral," I said. My voice was cold and clear. "I want every business associate, every family friend, every person who ever knew us. I want everyone who watched her play the loving daughter to see the truth. I want her humiliation to be as public as her lies." Aurel looked between us like we were crazy. Then slowly, she nodded. "If we're doing this, we have 72 hours to make it perfect. We need to stage the death. We need to bribe hospital staff. We need to prepare legal documents. We need to coordinate with investigators and prosecutors. And we need to make absolutely sure Eirlys doesn't suspect a thing." "Then let's get to work," I said. For the first time in 6 months, I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the hunter. Everything happened exactly as planned. The night staff at my hospital were paid well to keep quiet. At exactly 11:30 that night, alarms started going off in my room. Nurses rushed in. Doctors shouted orders. The crash cart was rolled in. Everyone performed their roles perfectly. Cardiac arrest. Time of death, 11:47. 20 minutes later, Eirlys walked through the hospital doors wearing a black designer dress. She'd prepared it in advance. She knew exactly when I was going to die because she'd planned it down to the day. She just didn't know I'd planned it too. She ran to my room, her heels clicking on the hospital floor. When she saw my body lying still on the bed, she collapsed beside me. She grabbed my hand. She sobbed loudly. Nurses patted her shoulder. The doctor spoke to her in quiet, sympathetic tones. She played the devastated daughter perfectly. From the safe house 3 miles away, I watched everything on hidden cameras Makoa had installed. I watched my daughter cry over my body. I watched her bury her face in her hands. I watched nurses bring her tissues and water. Everyone in that room believed her grief was real. For just a moment, I wondered if maybe some part of it was real. Maybe beneath all the lies and the poison and the murder, there was a tiny piece of my daughter that actually loved me. Maybe she felt something. Maybe killing me wasn't as easy as she'd pretended. Maybe even monsters can feel regret. Then everyone left the room. The nurses stepped out to give her privacy. The doctor went to file paperwork, and I watched my daughter's face change. The tears stopped instantly, like turning off a faucet. She wiped her eyes, checked her reflection in her phone camera, and smiled. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. "It's done," she said. Her voice was light, happy. "She's finally dead." I heard a man's voice on the other end. "Ansel." "No, I already checked her pulse myself this time," Eirlys said, laughing. "She's actually gone. Not like last week when I thought she was dead, but she was just sleeping really deeply. This time, I made sure." My hands clenched into fists in the safe house. She'd checked before. She'd stood over my sleeping body and checked my pulse to see if I was dead yet. "The crematorium is coming in 4 hours," she continued. "By tomorrow morning, there won't be any evidence left. We did it, baby. We actually did it. We're about to be so rich." She hung up and immediately started texting, still smiling, not a single tear on her face. I watched her through the camera with no expression. I'd thought I understood how evil she was. I'd thought I'd accepted it. But seeing her celebrate my death, seeing her laugh about it, seeing how happy she was that she'd finally killed me, it hit different. This wasn't my daughter. This was a stranger wearing my daughter's face. 20 minutes later, Dr. Vela arrived at the hospital. She went straight to my room. Eirlys hugged her, playing sad again in case anyone was watching, but Makoa had cameras everywhere. We watched Dr. Veli pull out paperwork and sign the death certificate. Natural causes due to liver failure. Completely false. Her signature was captured perfectly on FBI cameras hidden in the room. Then Eirlys pulled out her phone and made a wire transfer right there in the hospital room. $50,000. Final payment to Dr. Veli for murdering me with fake diagnoses and real poison. They hugged again. Dr. Veli left. And Eirlys sat down in the chair beside my body, scrolling through her phone, probably shopping online or texting Ansel about vacation plans. She wasn't grieving. She was planning how to spend my money. "Now we wait," Makoa said quietly beside me in the safe house. "Let her get comfortable. Let her start spending. Let her think she's safe. The funeral is in 5 days. That's when we spring the trap." I nodded, still watching my daughter on the screen. "Make it big," I said. "I want everyone there. I want the exposure to be so public she can never escape it. 5 more days. 5 more days of being dead. Then I'd show her what resurrection really meant." The next 5 days were like watching a nature documentary about predators. Except the predators were my daughter and the man I'd trusted with my fortune, and they had no idea someone was watching every single move they made. Ansel moved fast. Using those forged power of attorney documents, he started emptying my investment accounts. $2 million on day 1, $3 million on day 2. FBI agents documented every transfer, every account he touched, every illegal transaction. He was so confident, he didn't even try to hide it. Eirlys was worse. She booked a vacation to the Maldives. First-class tickets, a resort that cost $15,000 per night. Departure date? The day right after my funeral. She wasn't even going to pretend to mourn for more than a week. They stopped hiding their relationship completely. They went to expensive restaurants together, holding hands across the table. They laughed loudly. They ordered champagne. One night, they went to a club and danced until 3 in the morning. My body was supposedly sitting in a morgue, and my daughter was celebrating. Every phone call was recorded. Every text message was saved. Every credit card purchase was documented. They made mistake after mistake because they thought they'd won. I watched all of it from the safe house. Makoa kept showing me updates. I thought I'd feel rage. I thought I'd scream or cry or throw something. But instead, I felt nothing, just cold emptiness. Maybe I'd already grieved my daughter years ago without realizing it. Maybe the real Eirlys died when she was young, and this monster just looked like her. Maybe I never actually had a daughter at all. Then Makoa showed me something that changed everything. "We found a witness," he said. "Someone who worked in your house. Her name was Timberly Hucks. She was my overnight healthcare aide, the one who stayed with me on nights when I felt too weak to be alone. She'd been too scared to come forward before, but now that I was dead, she wanted to tell the truth. The FBI brought her in. She sat down with agents and pulled out her phone. Her hands shook as she found the video. "I recorded this 3 weeks ago," she said. "I was in the hallway bathroom when I heard someone enter Mrs. Brandt's room. It was almost midnight. I looked through the crack in the door and saw Eirlys. Something felt wrong, so I started recording. The video started playing. I watched the screen and felt my stomach turn. There was Eirlys, sneaking into my bedroom at night. She moved quietly to my bedside table where my evening tea sat cooling. She pulled a small bag from her pocket. White pills. She crushed them with the back of a spoon, grinding them into fine powder. Then she stirred the powder into my tea, making sure it dissolved completely. But the worst part came next. Eirlys leaned down close to my face. I was sleeping in the video, completely unaware. And she whispered, "Sweet dreams, Mom. Every night you drink this, you're one day closer to setting me free." Then she kissed my forehead gently and left the room. The video was time-stamped. It showed the exact date and time. It was geotagged to my house. It was perfect evidence that couldn't be argued away or explained. Combined with the digitalis prescription, Dr. Veli's fake medical records, Ansel's embezzlement, the forged documents, and the forensic evidence from Garrick's boat 8 years ago, the case was absolutely airtight. Detective Ramirez called a meeting with his team. 12 officers gathered to coordinate the funeral operation. I watched through video call as he briefed them. "This isn't just an arrest," he told them. "This is justice for 2 murders. Garrick Brandt 8 years ago, and the attempted murder of Thessaly Brandt. We do this right. We do this publicly, and we make sure these people never hurt anyone again." The funeral was tomorrow. Everything was ready. The chapel was booked. 300 invitations had been sent. Eirlys had prepared her eulogy. Ansel had his black suit pressed and ready. Dr. Vela was planning to attend to keep up appearances. They all thought they were going to a funeral. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. I stood in front of a mirror in the safe house, practicing what I'd say. Practicing how I'd move. Practicing my resurrection. "Let's make this public," I said quietly to my reflection. "Let's make sure she never hurts anyone again. Tomorrow, the dead would rise, and justice would finally be served." 300 people filled the Rosewood Cemetery chapel. Business partners I'd worked with for decades, friends from college, hospital staff, everyone who'd known me. The casket sat at the front, covered in white roses. Piano music played softly. It was beautiful. Perfect. Exactly the kind of funeral I would have wanted. Eirlys sat in the front row wearing a black Chanel dress that probably cost $10,000. She held Ansel's hand, but tried to be discreet about it. To everyone else, he just looked like a family friend offering comfort. Her eyes were red. Her face looked tired. She was playing the grieving daughter perfectly. The service started. A pastor stood at the podium and talked about my generosity, about my business success, about how much I'd given to charity. Then colleagues came up one by one. They shared memories. They cried. They talked about what a wonderful person I was. Some of them were genuinely sad. Others were just being polite. But all of them believed I was dead. Then it was Eirlys's turn. She walked slowly to the podium, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. She took a deep breath and began speaking. "My mother was my best friend," she said, her voice breaking. "Losing her so suddenly to liver failure, I still can't believe she's gone. I'll never understand why God took her from me so young. She had so much left to give to the world." She paused, wiping tears. "But I promise you, Mom, I promise I'll honor your legacy. I'll make you proud. I'll live the kind of life you taught me to live." People in the audience dabbed their eyes. Several nodded. The pastor looked moved. Even I had to admit, watching from inside the casket through a tiny hidden camera, she was good. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her too. She returned to her seat. The pastor said a final prayer. The pallbearers began moving toward the casket to carry it out. Everything was going exactly as planned for Eirlys. In a few hours, my body would be cremated, all evidence destroyed, and she'd be free. Then the chapel's rear doors slammed open. Detective Ramirez walked down the center aisle. 6 uniformed police officers flanked him on both sides. The piano music stopped. Every head turned. The room went completely silent. Eirlys stood up fast. Confusion crossed her face. Then fear. What's happening? This is a private funeral. You can't just... Ladies and gentlemen, Detective Ramirez said loudly, his voice echoing through the chapel. This funeral is now a crime scene. No one is permitted to leave the premises. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People looked at each other in confusion. Ansel's face went pale. Dr. Vela, sitting 3 rows back, started to stand up, but an officer moved to block her. Detective Ramirez walked straight to the casket. He looked directly at Eirlys. "Miss Brandt," he said calmly, "your mother has something she'd like to say to you." Eirlys's eyes went wide. "What are you talking about?" "My mother is..." He knocked twice on the casket lid. "Ma'am, whenever you're ready." The casket opened slowly. I sat up. The chapel exploded. Screams, shouts, people jumping out of their seats. Someone fainted in the back row. Eirlys stumbled backward, her face draining of every drop of color. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, which, I suppose, she had. "No," she whispered. "No, that's impossible. You were dead. I checked your pulse myself. I watched you die. I saw..." She stopped talking suddenly, her hand flying to her mouth. She'd just confessed in front of 300 witnesses that she'd checked to make sure I was dead. I stepped out of the casket carefully, straightening my dress. Someone handed me a wireless microphone. The entire service was being recorded on multiple cameras. Every word would be documented. "You checked to make sure your poison worked," I said clearly. My voice echoed through the silent chapel. "For 6 months, Eirlys, you poisoned me with digitalis. You paid Dr. Vela $200,000 to falsify my medical records and diagnose me with terminal liver failure. You forged my signature to increase my life insurance to $20 million. You had Ansel create fake power of attorney documents, and the moment I died, you called the crematorium. You wanted my body burned before anyone could find the poison." Eirlys tried to run. Officers blocked every exit. She spun around, looking for escape, but there was none. "But that's not why everyone is here today," I said, my voice dropping. "Detective Ramirez, please show the evidence regarding Garrick Brandt's death." A projection screen lowered slowly behind the altar. The pastor stepped aside, his face white with shock. The screen flickered to life. 300 people sat frozen in their seats, not understanding yet what they were about to see. Most of them thought this was about me, about the poisoning, about Eirlys trying to kill her mother for inheritance money. That was horrible enough, but they didn't understand the full story yet. They didn't know how deep the evil went. The first image appeared on screen. Security footage from 8 years ago. A young woman standing at the counter of a marine supply store. The image zoomed in on her face. It was Eirlys. She was 21 years old, buying parts for a boat. Detective Ramirez pressed play on an audio recording. The cashier's voice filled the chapel. "Yeah, I remember her. She bought fuel line components, told me it was for her father's boat, said she wanted to surprise him by fixing it herself. Seemed like a sweet kid." The next slide showed phone records. Text messages between Eirlys and Ansel from 8 years ago. Detective Ramirez read them out loud. "The boat is ready. Sunday, 6 a.m. Make sure he goes alone. Once the engine ignites, it's over. Then we wait. Play the grieving daughter. In 6 months, you inherit everything." Gasps echoed through the chapel. People started understanding. This wasn't just about me. This was about Garrick, my husband, Eirlys's father. A forensic report appeared on screen. Detective Ramirez read it clearly. The fuel line on Garrick Brandt's boat was deliberately severed and reconnected improperly. When the engine started, fuel leaked onto hot engine parts, causing an immediate explosion. The original investigation ruled this accidental due to normal wear and tear. However, new analysis confirms the damage was intentional. Manner of death: homicide. My voice cracked. For the first time since stepping out of that casket, I felt tears in my eyes. "You killed your father," I said, looking directly at Eirlys. "You murdered him when you were 21 years old because you wanted your inheritance early. You made me believe it was a tragic accident. You cried at his funeral." You held my hand at his grave. You made me comfort you through your grief. You made me grieve with you for 8 years. For the man you murdered. The chapel was completely silent. You could hear Eirlys breathing heavily, panicking, looking for any way out. When that money ran out, I continued, when you gambled it away and spent it on designer clothes and luxury vacations, you decided to kill me too. You spent 6 months slowly poisoning me. You paid a doctor to lie. You forged legal documents. You planned everything perfectly. Eirlys was shaking now, her eyes wild. But you made one mistake, baby girl. You whispered your plan out loud. You held my hand and said, just 3 more days. You thought I was unconscious. You thought I couldn't hear you. But I heard every single word. Officers started moving in from all sides. Eirlys saw them coming and screamed. You were supposed to be dead, she shouted at me. I did everything right. The poison, the doctor, the timing, the cremation orders. I planned everything perfectly. You were supposed to be dead. You did do everything right, I said quietly. You just didn't know I was watching. The officers grabbed her. She fought them, screaming and kicking. They put handcuffs on her wrists. 2 more officers moved to Ansel, who'd tried to sneak toward a side door. They arrested him right there in the chapel. Outside, other officers were arresting Dr. Vela and her pharmacist boyfriend at the exact same moment. Eirlys was dragged down the center aisle, still screaming, "This isn't fair! That money was supposed to be mine! It was mine!" 300 people watched in complete horror. Some were crying. Some looked sick. All of them had just witnessed a daughter being arrested for murdering both her parents. I stood next to my open casket, very much alive, watching my daughter's final moments of freedom. She'd killed her father 8 years ago. She'd tried to kill me 6 months ago. And now, finally, she was going to pay for it. The chapel doors closed behind her. The screaming faded. And for the first time in 8 years, Garrick could rest in peace. Justice had finally been served. 6 months later, the trials were everywhere. Every news channel, every newspaper, every social media platform. The mother who rose from her casket, they called me. The story went viral around the world. People couldn't believe a daughter would murder both her parents. The evidence was overwhelming. Videos, bank records, text messages, witness testimony, forensic reports. Everything Makoa and his team had collected over those weeks. Eirlys's defense lawyers tried every trick they knew. They claimed she had mental illness. They said she couldn't tell right from wrong. They tried to make her look like a victim. But the prosecution showed 10 years of careful planning. The messages about killing Garrick 8 years ago, the 6 months of poisoning me, the forged documents, the fake medical records, the embezzlement scheme. Everything was calculated. Everything was planned. She knew exactly what she was doing. Part of me wondered if maybe, during the trial, Eirlys would finally show remorse. Maybe she'd cry real tears and apologize. Maybe she'd say she was sorry for killing her father and trying to kill me. Maybe there'd be some kind of reconciliation. Because that's what people expect from mothers and daughters. But that's not what happened. The verdicts came down swift and absolute. Eirlys Brandt was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, and forgery. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without any possibility of parole. She would die behind bars. During the sentencing, she stood up and screamed at me across the courtroom. "You ruined my life," she shouted. "This is all your fault. I had everything planned perfectly." The judge slammed his gavel. "No, Miss Brandt. You ended your father's life and attempted to end your mother's life. Your life is ruined because of your choices alone. You are a danger to society and will remain incarcerated for the rest of your natural life." Ansel Kine was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and wire fraud, 35 years in federal prison. He was ordered to repay the $8 million he stole, but his assets were completely seized. He lost everything: his fancy suits, his expensive cars, his reputation, all of it gone. Dr. Vele lost her medical license permanently. Convicted of conspiracy, medical fraud, and falsifying records, 18 years in prison. After the trial, 47 other patients came forward saying she'd falsified their records too for various insurance schemes. She destroyed her entire career for money. As for me, I spent months recovering from the digitalis poisoning. My heart slowly returned to normal. My vision cleared. My energy came back. Physically, I healed completely. Emotionally, something unexpected happened. I felt relief. For years, I'd been mourning the sweet daughter I thought I had, the little girl who used to bring me flowers, the child who'd sit on my lap and tell me she loved me. But that child never existed. Or maybe she did exist once, but she died a long time ago. The monster in prison now was always there. I just refused to see it. I sold my pharmaceutical company for $68 million. I didn't need it anymore. Instead, I created the Garrick Brandt Foundation. It helps families affected by domestic murder and financial abuse. It funds investigations into suspicious, accidental deaths that might actually be murder. If I could help even one person avoid what happened to Garrick and me, it would be worth it. I legally changed my name and moved to a small coastal cottage in New Zealand. Far away from the media, far away from the memories, far away from everything. One evening, I stood on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The sunset painted the sky gold and red. In my hands, I held white rose petals, the same flowers that covered my casket at the funeral. I scattered them into the wind one by one. "I couldn't save you, my love," I whispered to Garrick's memory. "I didn't see the monster we raised, but I made sure she'll never hurt anyone again. You can rest now. Justice is done." The last petal floated away on the ocean breeze. I turned and walked back toward my cottage. Makoa was sitting on the porch with 2 cups of tea. We'd become close friends through all of this, a friendship built on truth and survival. For the first time in 8 years, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. The weight was finally gone. The lies were exposed. The monster was locked away forever. I was finally, truly, free. So here's what I need to know from you. And I want you to be completely honest in the comments. If your own child whispered that they were waiting for you to die so they could inherit your money, could you ever forgive them? Would you still call them your child? Or would you do exactly what I did and make sure they paid for it? Because here's the thing nobody wants to admit. We're taught that parents should love their children unconditionally, that mothers should forgive anything, that family is forever. But what happens when your family member is a murderer? What happens when unconditional love meets someone who has no conscience at all? Drop your honest answer in the comments. Would you have forgiven Eirlys? Would you have still visited her in prison? Or would you have done exactly what I did and walked away forever? And if this story opened your eyes to something you needed to see about your own family, hit that like button and share this video. Because the more we talk about family betrayal openly, the harder it becomes for toxic people to hide in the shadows.